Welcome to episode 19 of the SaaS Report. I'm your host, Matt Ed, founder at Sales Science. Today, we're going to be looking at Q1 results from Nutanix, Pure Storage, Gitlab, and Paylocity. We're then going to be taking a look at Marc Andreessen's thesis that AI is going to absolutely nuke all incumbent players in B2B. And then finally, we'll close off with a bit of a sneak preview on something that we've developed internally, an AI calling agent and the potential applications that we see for that in the market. So let's get into it. The Gitlab share price is down about 15% after Q1 earnings. That shaved off about $1.2 billion in market cap. That came as a result of them missing their Q1 revenue number. Revenue was still up 27% year over year, but the quarter over quarter number was pretty bad. They only added $12.3 million in net new ARR quarter over quarter. Now, as we can see, Q1 net new ARR add is kind of typically low. We've seen that over the last 2 years, but it was unusually low this year, right, compared to Q1 of 25 and Q1 of 24 previously. The lack of growth meant that CAC payback exploded. That came in at 109 months for Q1 this year. Magic number was at 0.12. And they're also running pretty big operating losses. Operating income was negative $38 million for the quarter. That came about even despite pretty large cuts to OpEx. So all of the major OpEx categories were down as a percentage of revenue. So sales and marketing was reduced to 50% of revenue, down from 55 a year ago. R&D was down to 30 from 32. G&A was down a lot from 34 last year to 24% of revenue in Q1 this year. Despite the operating margin challenges, they had a really strong free cash flow quarter. So that came in at 49% free cash flow margin, coming in at 105 million for the quarter. That gave them rule of 40 of 76 and rule of X of 103. Nutanix is a new addition to the state of SaaS basket of companies that we track. They provide software for data centers and hybrid multi-cloud deployments. What they try to do for customers is to simplify IT infrastructure by unifying compute, storage, virtualization, and networking into a single platform. So they're doing about 2.1 billion in ARR. That grew 18% in Q1 year over year. They spent about 40% of revenue on sales and marketing. In Q1, they added 80 million in net new ARR for the quarter. They spent about 260 million on sales and marketing to generate that growth. That gave them CAC payback of about 45 months. And they've reported positive operating income for the third straight quarter. That's the longest streak in the company's history. As we can see over the last few quarters, that was trending pretty largely negative and has for the last 3 quarters bumped up into the positive range. So that came in at an 8% operating margin for the quarter. They had free cash flow of $187 million. That was 29% of revenue. Rule of 40 came in at 47. Rule of X at 65. ARR per employee is just under 350,000. And they've got a market cap of about 20 billion. That's around 9 times kind of Q1 ARR. Pure Storage is another new addition to the basket of companies that we track. Now, it's a little bit tricky to compare these guys to kind of the pure play SaaS companies that we normally look at, and that's because about 50% of their revenue comes from non-recurring product sales. They still generate pretty good margins on that, so margins on product in Q1 came in at 62%, but this revenue isn't recurring, right? They're kind of one-time sales. But over the last 7 years, they've very successfully built out their subscription business. 6.5 years ago, that was sitting at 480 million. That was up to 1.6 billion in Q1 of this year. So really good growth. That's been compounding at about 20% per annum over the last 6.5 to 7 years. In the last 12 months, they spent $1 billion on sales and marketing, which was about 34% of revenue. They generated 340 million in net new revenue over that time. That gave them CAC payback of 52 months. They spent 25% on R&D. They had 27% free cash flow margins for the quarter, negative 4% operating margin. Rule of 40 came in at 39, rule of X at 51. They're trading at about 5.6 times revenue, or about $17 billion market cap right now. Paylocity is another company we haven't looked at before, but shout out to A.L. Goldstein who wanted me to cover them. They're a payroll and HCM software provider. They're at about a $1.6 billion run rate. They generate 71% gross margins. They spend about 20% of revenue on sales and marketing in Q1, about 11% on R&D. So not big spenders from an OpEx standpoint, and that allows them to generate really strong margins. So operating margins came in at 28% for the quarter, and And then really strong net income margins as well. So they had 20% net income for Q1. Not many of the companies that we track can claim positive net income margins. Certainly not in kind of the 15 to 20% range. But Paylocity does. Is if we look back over the last 8 quarters here, this has been historically strong, sitting somewhere between 20 and 25% net income margins for the last 8 quarters. Still growing strongly on top of that as well. So revenue growth came in at 15% year over year. They added $217 million in net revenue. They spent $356 million on sales and marketing to generate that growth. So that gives them CAC payback of about 20 months over the last 12 months. Now, that's exceptional in this environment today, right? Most of the companies that we track now are kind of north of 30 months, even some of the best, right? And go-to-market efficiency is sitting above 30 now, so 20 is exceptional. Magic number came in at 0.61, free cash flow margin of 37% for the quarter, and they generate about $260,000 in ARR per employee. They've got a market cap of $9.8 billion, or about 5.8 times ARR. I was watching Marc Andreessen's interview on the Uncapped podcast with Jack Altman this week. And the thing that really stood out to me was when he said that they're investing on the thesis that AI nukes all of the incumbents. Now, investing on the thesis that AI nukes all incumbents and actually believing that that's going to happen are two different things. And he actually qualified that statement by saying, look, that doesn't mean that none of the incumbents are going to survive this, right? They may adapt, they may adjust, and they may still win their respective markets. But from an investor's standpoint, this makes sense, right? Basically, what he's saying here is that every market is now back up for grabs. Want to build an enterprise CRM to compete with Salesforce, right? Go for it. Want to build a platform to compete with Workday? Go for it. You think AI unlocks kind of a new consumer app revolution that dethrones kind of, Meta, right? You might be right. The message here, I think, from Marc Andreessen is that for the first time in a long time, incumbency doesn't help you. And one of the big reasons why I think that he might be right here is that AI potentially completely changes the way that we interact with software. Instead of a human sitting behind a keyboard and punching in and extracting information from kind of a UI of tabs, rows, columns, and buttons, the UI in the future probably just becomes a chat box, right? Think about it from the perspective of like a project management platform. At the moment, you've got tools like Monday or Asana that can help you to kind of plan and track the work that you need to get done, right? Inside these apps are a bunch of checklists, Gantt charts, to-do lists, project statuses, right? Approval workflows, right? All of this kind of stuff. So what if instead of these Gantt charts and checklists and to-do lists, I just open up an AI tool and it tells me exactly what I need to know and what I need to get done today. It shows me the list of things that it has already done for me that I just need to approve. And then it provides another list, which is like all of the things that it's already shipped that I can review if I want to, right? This AI sits in every meeting with me. So it's in every call that I'm on. It never misses anything. It knows exactly what's been assigned to me. It knows exactly when it's due. It knows exactly what I said I would get done and when. And then it works with me to make sure that that gets done, right? Whether it's prompting me to do it, whether it's producing work and getting me to check it off, or whether it's just going and completing tasks on my behalf. Right? This is a completely new paradigm, and it's one that the incumbents likely don't have a head start in, right? Like if you're Monday or you're Asana, and this is what project management software looks like in the next 3 to 4 years, you're likely no further along that path than a startup that's sitting in YC today. And in fact, they may actually have a disadvantage to the startups today. And that's just simply due to the innovator's dilemma, right? Your whole business, if you're one of these incumbents, is built around this existing paradigm, right? It's built around an existing UI, and making fundamental changes to that is or will require a full rework, right? The company that's coming in doesn't have to maintain an existing product. They don't have existing customer relationships. They don't have analyst expectations on next quarter's earnings growth, right? They don't have to go through any of that rigmarole. They can just sit here in this new paradigm and build for that. And so I think I agree, right? I think that no incumbents are safe today. Does that mean that none of them are going to win in these new markets? No, of course not. But it means that the playing field is potentially reset in a way that we haven't seen since Salesforce came out with a cloud CRM, right, in the early 2000s. And that's a really exciting time if you're a builder today. Okay, final thing I want to cover today is something that we've developed internally. So we've built an AI voice agent in-house, and I want you to watch this video so that you can see it live in action. Check this out.
Hello, Matt speaking.
Hey, Matt. This is Dylan here. I realize this is kind of out of the blue. Can I take like 20 seconds to tell you why I'm calling?
Yeah, sure thing. I'm about to run to a meeting, but yeah, I've got a minute.
All right, appreciate you giving me a minute. So a lot of marketing and data teams I'm talking to are hitting the same wall, just struggling to pull meaningful insights from all the behavioral data and digital noise out there. Out of curiosity, how are you currently handling audience segmentation and campaign targeting? Is that working well, or do you find it still a bit of a bottleneck?
To be fair, it's a bit cumbersome. We don't actually have much of a process in place at the moment. Whilst it's something I really want to get into and do, there just isn't really the time. I'm just too focused on other areas at the moment.
Yeah, totally get that. It's easy for this stuff to fall by the wayside when priorities pile up. The reason I'm reaching out is because we work with an AI-powered behavioral intelligence company called Scream. They help businesses create real-time, privacy-safe audience segments. No cookies, no user data headaches, just AI mapping intent from billions of web signals. Would it be wild to see if a quick walkthrough of how it works might help you carve out more time or automate some of that audience work you've been wanting to tackle?
Potentially, it depends on the pricing structure. Really, do you have that on hand or?
Yeah, good question. So I actually don't handle pricing or the deep technical details. My focus is just on seeing if there's enough interest for a short call with someone from Scream who can walk through what might fit for you. If it's cool with you, what's the best email to send a quick invite just so you can see if it's even worth digging deeper? Or was there something more specific you'd want info on first?
No, that's fine. I am actually about to run to this meeting, so can you just give me a call back, say like sometime next week, and we'll chat about it then?
Yeah, that works. I'll make a note to follow up with you next week and we'll keep it quick. Is there a particular day or time that's usually better for you, or should I just reach back out and we'll find a slot on the fly?
Just reach back out to me and we'll see how I'm placed.
All right, sounds good. I'll reach back out next week and we'll see what works for your schedule.
Now, we're not naive enough to think that this replaces SDRs. The way that I think about using voice agents is the same way that I think about using AI generally across our business. And that is to look at it through the lens of AI is probably best positioned today to help us do the things that we're not doing often enough or that we're not doing at all. And so we're really big believers, obviously we've built a business around it, in how effective, human SDRs are at cold calling to generate sales pipeline. And so we're not looking for this AI agent to replace people doing that job today and the people that do it well. But when I think about these kind of voice AI agents, I think there are opportunities for them to add value today, looking at, again, some of those things that either we're not doing enough of today or that we're not doing at all. And I want to give you a couple examples of what those are. Right? The first is these could be very effective for companies with large databases of kind of like opted in prospects, right? So this could be companies that run a lot of digital marketing that generate a lot of leads and that have done so for a long period of time, right? So they're sitting on an opt-in database of, tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of potential prospects. So typically this is going to be more applicable to kind of consumer businesses or even to kind of like SMB type SaaS plays into markets that are very large. So we recently completed a pilot with a real estate firm that had kind of north of 50,000 prospects in a database. And these prospects weren't getting called regularly because, their sales force was kind of tied up, kind of chasing the new leads that came in on a weekly basis, right? They didn't have time to get to the database to re-engage that, to figure out if there was opportunity sitting in there. And so typically what they had relied on is like, email nurture campaigns or re-engagement through digital channels, right? But they didn't turn their human sellers on this list very often because the kind of return on effort just didn't justify it, right? They were better off chasing the net new stuff that was coming in, and there wasn't a compelling kind of ROI for them working these existing leads sitting in the database, right? So we ran a pilot with this company in May. The agent executed about 3,000 dials, got into about 500 live connects, and generated about 30 warm prospects for their human sellers to re-engage with. So not bad conversion rates, right? Keep in mind that this is a database that hadn't been worked for more than 12 months. So effectively like cold leads in a sense, right? 6% conversion rate from connect, right, through to an interested kind of prospect, right? Pretty good numbers. So that's the first use case, right? Is if you're sitting on a large database of leads that your human sellers can't get to, voice AI may be a way to kind of understand who's in market or who's potentially close to being in market so that you can now re-engage your human human sellers into that conversation. Second potential use case is that you can use voice AI agents to catalog the market. So if you're operating in an industry where you've got a very large TAM, where it's impossible for you to get coverage across that TAM frequently enough with your existing sales force, right? You could use these agents to do things like gather information, distribute content, right? Educate the market on your offerings, right? Ahead of your human sellers being involved in those conversations one-to-one. And so the outcomes that you might want to try to get from those calls using a voice agent is things like, number one, does the prospect pick up the phone, right? If we call them, will they pick up? Number two, do they care about the problem we solve, right? Like, is it even relevant to them? Is it on their priority list at the moment? And then the third thing could be something like, how are they solving that problem today? If you want to understand this concept of like cataloging the market in more detail, check out Adam Medernovich and his new offering called CRO School. He kind of was the pioneer behind this concept of like, go out to market, not to sell, but to figure out how you can sell to them in the future. And so I think there's some overlap here between a voice AI being able to help you to uncover, right, the 10 to 15% of your market that your human reps should be focused on, and leaving the stuff that they shouldn't be focused on yet. Now, here's an ask for you. If you're someone out there, you run a sales team and you fit one of those two scenarios, I'd love to chat to you, right? If you're sitting on a large existing database of prospects that aren't being touched by human sellers frequently, please let me know. Or if you're sitting on a really large TAM and you don't have a large enough sales force to cover that TAM, 2 to 3 times a year, let me know. I'd love to talk to you. We're looking for maybe 2 or 3 customers that we can run a pilot with here to uncover whether or not this voice AI can add value. So if that sounds like you, get in touch with me. Would love to chat and walk you through how we might be able to help. All right, that's it for this week. Thanks for tuning in. I'm going to be here again next week. If there's anything that you want me to cover, please let me know. If you're watching this and you've watched to the end, and if you're not subscribed on YouTube yet, please do me a favor, go and subscribe. It'd mean the world to me. I'll see you again here next week. Until then, goodbye.